Rick Maese, who is a sports writer for the Washington Post, his recent column, DJ Durkin, Maryland part ways following outcry over coach's reinstatement. Rick, kind enough to join us on short notice. Rick, why was DJ Durkin fired?
Well, I mean, that's a good question. I think that's what everyone has been asking the past 24 hours. But I mean, basically, there was a change of heart, and the backlash was so loud and so profound and so overwhelming yesterday that the Maryland president, Wallace Lohs, decided that he needed to kind of go with his heart. And it's important to understand Wallace Lohs wanted to fire him initially, but it's the Board of Regents that kind of oversee him, and they're the ones that urged him to bring DJ Durkin back. There was so much of an outcry yesterday that I think Wallace Lohs realized there's no way DJ Durkin can continue coaching this team and be on the sideline Saturday, and he really had no choice, he felt, but to finally reverse course and part ways with DJ Durkin.
But they brought him back. That's what what happened in a 24-hour period that, aside from the reaction, he's not more guilty. It feels like they fired him. But did they fire him for the correct reason?
Well, I mean, certainly many people think that they could have made this move, in August or September. But I think it's important to realize there's two different kind of entities, two different power brokers here. There's a Board of Regents and there's a university president. The university president felt like his arm was twisted and he had no choice but to follow the regent's recommendation. I think the outcry was so loud yesterday that he realized that he had no choice but to defy that recommendation and reverse course. So certainly he could have defied it from day one, but he was under the impression, and this is from sources that we've spoken to numerous times over the past few days, he was under the impression that if he didn't bring DJ Durkin back, the board would get rid of him and find someone else that would, some other president, some other interim entity that would follow their wishes.
What's he accused of?
Well, so they're not firing him with cause. They're not saying that the program had toxic culture. They're not saying that he was in any way responsible for Jordan McNair's death. I think what they're terminating his employment, and you don't need to really explain a reason because they're buying out his contract. So on a very simple level, they're just saying the relationship is not sustainable. DJ Durkin cannot continue as head coach. It's not the best thing for the team, for the university, for the campus community. So they don't have to outline a specific reason or give any cause because they don't feel like they necessarily had cause to fire him, just on the spot and terminate his employment, without pay.
And you guys at the Washington Post have done a great job with this story over the last couple of months, but I'm curious with what you saw with the actual workout where Jordan McNair died. Like, what happened there, and who is anybody else culpable for this aside from DJ Durkin?
Well, I think there's been so much finger pointing, and there's been 2 investigative reports, and they've outlined a number of bad actors here. And so, if you just want to focus on that workout specifically, much of the focus has been on the athletic trainers who failed to diagnose him, who failed to, they didn't treat him because they didn't properly diagnose him. And everyone you talk to will tell you that heat stroke is a very preventable, very curable thing. If you can realize the temperature is too high, get it back down within an hour, and then you just carry on. It's treated routinely on college campuses and elsewhere. So the athletic trainers failed to diagnose Jordan. And I think we have another story up this morning that we just posted shortly before I came on here. Another one of the Regents' recommendations that is somewhat baffling is they urge College Park to bring these 2 athletic trainers back, the 2 men that have been on leave in connection with their actions that day.
Yeah.
And there's no explanation for why they would do that. College Park has not brought them back. They still remain on leave. But it's just kind of baffling to figure out why the Regents would make that kind of suggestion.
Lawsuits? Do you think
I think you're talking. Yeah, I think you hit it right. That's a plural. I think we're going to have multiple lawsuits.
Yeah.
They're going to come from all directions. They're certainly going to involve players. I don't expect DJ Durkin's going to go quietly. If he wanted to walk away quietly, he would have negotiated a buyout or settlement back in August or September. I think he feels like he's been very much wronged here. I'm not sure a buyout's going to be sufficient. He's going to feel like his reputation's damaged. He's going to feel like his long-term earnings have been impacted here. So you're going to have multiple lawsuits, and other people are going to leave. There's going to be other players that speak up, and certainly other players that feel like they've been wronged. And we've talked to multiple players who've come through the program, and they feel like they're still suffering, PTSD type symptoms for what they experienced under DJ Durkin and Rick Court, the former strength and conditioning coach. So. Yeah, no shortage, and I think plural's the right way to say it. I'm going to be a sports reporter some days, but probably a legal reporter many more days in the coming future.
I wondered if it was going to be a mess on Saturday, that you have a home game with Michigan State, and I just wondered what the feel was going to be like. The fact that DJ Durkin has been fired, what do you think was going to happen on Saturday with players, if they were going to play, the protest?
Yeah, I mean, we'd heard that some players were talking about things. I think I never thought we were going to see a walkout or protest, because the one thing, when DJ Durkin was allowed to return, what is the message that sends to the locker room or to everybody? It tells you that this guy's untouchable. There's no reason to speak out because he's the one that's going to survive everything. And so I just didn't have the sense that players were going to band together in any kind of huge way, even if some individually were upset that DJ Durkin was back in place. So I certainly didn't think that 24 hours later he was going to be fired. I'm not sure anyone could have predicted that things would happen that quickly. And I'll be really curious to see what the vibe is at that stadium on this Saturday. We heard from a ton of alumni and fans that were embarrassed for their school, that were sick over this whole thing. Not just Jordan McNair's death, but the way it's been handled and treated, ever since then. So I'll be curious if they come back, or if they're still disgusted and hurt over this entire thing and feel like they need to take a little break from Maryland football. To be clear, Maryland football, I mean, the basketball team's always been the big show on campus. The program is not. We're not talking about Ohio State here. DJ Durkin was 10-15, in his time there. So it's always, fans have always run a little hot and cold on the football team.
Can you clear this up, that there was a sign-up sheet if you wanted to talk to investigators, and it was outside the coach's office? So, like, there's no anonymity whatsoever, and coach is going to be able to see who signs up. Is that fact?
So I would have to dig back into the report. So I think you're referring to the initial report that was really focused more on the events surrounding Jordan McNair's death.
Yeah.
I can tell you that the second report that was more on the culture of the football program, they spoke with a lot more players. Players were provided anonymity, and I think the program was a lot more helpful in that. But if I remember correctly, that first report, that was the initial way they tried to reach out to players, and I know a lot of people inside the building took offense, but I do think there might have been some measures taken after the fact to maybe cast a broader net. But the initial report did not have a lot of players in it, and most of the people that were talked to for that report were trainers, coaches, people more kind of official in nature.
Thank you, Rick, for taking time. We appreciate it. Well done with the Washington Post. Thank you.
Anytime.
That's Rick Maese. He's sports writer for the Washington Post, covering what happened at Maryland.
For more Dan Patrick Show, tune to Audience Channel 239 on DirecTV or download the Dan Patrick Show app.